welcome to my work table. I am designing today with our Potomac treasure box for this month, and it was called Arctic Aqua, and these beads just kept me awake last night. Honestly, they did. I love what was in this box. Look at this color palette. I still have my little dish out here from my unboxing. I just adore these polar bears, and they kind of triggered what started out to be like a bracelet stacking set. I wanted to do a beaded chain with the snowflakes and a strung a strung bracelet and then a 2-hole bracelet and just stack them. And I was even going to go into some stretch cord, but last night I was trying to sleep and these little polar bears were waking me up. I love these cube beads so much, and I love the colors. This just looks sparkly like snow and ice, and I started thinking these little cube beads even look like what you might make an igloo out of. It's just the way my brain works. But I strung my first bracelet, and I was kind of playing with these little 3mm smooth round beads, and I think I'm going to restring this because I think I want to do the whole bracelet with the cube beads just punctuated with those little seed beads, then the polar bear, and complete the length this way. But this got me to thinking what a fabulous necklace that would make. So I am going to do these 3 bracelets and a necklace. I'll just show you what I pulled in. These are from last month's Potomac treasure box. They are these beautiful pale gold seed beads. We got beautiful seed beads in this box, but I want to mix gold and silver. So I also have from a past treasure box some Potomac beads Athena cast oval jump rings in silver. So I have a few of those there, and also from last month's box we got some silver curb chain, and this is going to go into my necklace design. So I'll get this out here. And a lot of this is just really repetitive stringing. Oh, I have a few links in here that I already cut. I did something with this. I love curb chain. It's such a good versatile chain. So I have a few links already started to play with. And what I'm going to do is show you this first bracelet because this is the easiest. This is just classic elegance. I just made little components out of the snowflake beads using my Softflex 20 gauge craft wire, and that's what I did the snowflakes with, and then I connected them with my Athena cast oval jump rings in silver. So it's just really sparkly, and I'm using my 1-step looper for this, the smallest one, which is the 1.5mm. Whoops, if I can get a hold of it. And I'm just going to get a simple loop in this wire. I saved the last one to do with you. You can also, of course, do your simple loops with your pliers, whatever way is best for you to get them in there. I like my 1-step looper. I've gotten really good at making good loops with it. So I do that, but you know, that's the beautiful thing about jewelry art. There's really not a right or wrong. When your piece is finished, you were the artist and nobody knows what you intended. Sometimes I have to go tidy up my loops, and that is also just the way that I work. I tend to fuss over my jewelry. I want things to be really pretty. And let's see, I want my little jump ring guy, and I'm just gonna finish connecting these with these great, I love oval jump rings. They take on, they look less like a jump ring, and to me they kind of look chain-like. So this is just a simple beaded snowflake chain. This is having a little moment for me, kind of using a theme bead. I did a video recently where I had these little glass gingerbread men and I turned them into a beaded chain as well. I just really like that look. To me, that is classic. So I'm just going to go down the length just like that, attaching my snowflake components with these silver oval jump rings. Okay, so this little bracelet is done. I haven't decided on my clasp for any of my bracelets yet. I think I'm going to do all my stringing and connecting and crimping and then go into my stash of clasps. And so for this bracelet, for this snowflake beaded chain, I took a decorative silver head pin from my stash, and I think I had a little, it must have gotten away, a little gold seed bead for the top of my polar bear. And I'm just going to use that same one-step looper and make a simple loop in it, and that's going to be a charm. I'm going to have a little polar bear charm on my beaded snowflake chain. I'm going to need more of these, so I might as well put some out here. And then on this guy, the polar bear, instead of being a charm, he's going to be strung right into the bracelet pattern. And on this one, I have this snowflake charm planned out, and I have this little sparkle head pin. I don't know where I got these, but it has like a little crystal at the bottom of the head pin, just a little sparkle. So I'm just reversing them. Polar bear on the snowflake bracelet and a snowflake charm on the polar bear bracelet. And I'm going to do that same exact thing with my one-step looper. Just come in and put a simple loop in it. You could do a wrapped loop here, just depending on your head pin. I had these in my stash. If I can find them, you think I might have ordered them from Amazon. If I can find these little head pins, I'll link them below. If you've been around, you know that. Check my description box, because I put a lot of information in my description boxes. So I'm going to take one of these oval jump rings and attach this to my bracelet. And you know what, I'll go ahead and attach it now, but I'm going to open this up again and find a little spot for it that I really like after I get my clasp out. So, but the work on this one is done, and it definitely needs a clasp, but isn't that sweet? Just a little polar bear charm on a snowflake beaded chain. I love that. Let's set this guy aside over here. And then this one is the one that I'm going to be restringing this, but I wanted to show you this because I think that this polar bear will look really pretty if the entire length of the bracelet is just a cube bead and then dotted by the seed beads. But this, I think, is going to be my pattern for my necklace. So I'm going to just take this off and do this one, or just redo the stringing off camera. So just put these little beads right back in a pile, and all I did was a cube bead and a seed bead and a cube bead, and I'm just going to get my whole length that way. And what I'm stringing my bracelet on is my Soft Flex white quartz 49 strand. I think I'm going to let this be exposed when I crimp this bracelet, and it's just perfect. It matches the polar bear and just the frosty look of these beads perfectly. So I'm going to do this just like this: cube, seed bead, cube, and when I come back, we'll crimp. Okay, this bracelet is all done. I actually really like my little polar bear charm right where I put it, even before the clasp was on. And I chose one of these little snap clasps for this one. I really like these. I hadn't really been using them, and I bought some on a bead shopping trip, and I really like them. So that sweet little bracelet is done. So I will need these beads for my necklace, but I'm going to show you that I use these storm duos. I use these kind of cloudy bicone crystals in my 2-hole bracelet. What else did I use? The seed beads from last month, but I can set this aside so that it's out of the way. So the little polar bear guy, I am so happy with this. I think that is so pretty. Just simple stringing, just a little cube bead and a seed bead in between each one, just going down to that polar bear. And then I have chosen a magnetic silver pave clasp to go on this guy, and it's going to have the opposite charm, a little silver sparkle snowflake charm on this one. So one thing, this is a viewer request. I have had a couple of people, but one most recent, who sent me a pretty long message and is confused about the different ways to crimp. So I'm going to use my magical crimping plier, which is the plier that just has one little divot, and it takes a number 2 crimp tube, which is what I have out here, and turns it into a little tiny bead. This is probably my favorite way to crimp. When it's crimped, especially like I'm using a gold crimp tube with the seed bead, a non-jewelry maker can't tell how the bracelet is held together because it doesn't look like it's doing a function. It looks like another little bead. And I really love that, but this plier works well with the Soft Flex 49 strand and a number 2 crimp tube. So I'm going to use this plier on both of these bracelets because I'm also using that white quartz Soft Flex on my 2-hole bead bracelet, and I'll talk to you a little bit about my pattern and my negative space, but I'll show you why, whether it's a single strung bracelet, a single strand bracelet, or a double or triple strand bracelet, I really love the magical crimping plier and a number 2 crimp tube for that type of crimping. So let's go ahead and do this one really quickly. On the first end of a design, you just need to get it crimped. You don't have to concern with the spacing or the tightness of your beads or anything. Just put the crimp tube on and make a loop, coming back down through the crimp tube. If it's possible, I like to run my end of my wire, my cut end, through a couple of beads, but a lot of times it is just not possible. Let's see if it even fits through these cube beads. No, it does not. So it's not possible on this one. So just making a little loop, and with the magical crimping plier, you're basically done there. You don't really have to pay attention to anything else. I will show you because I'm going to use my fold over crimp method, which kind of makes like a little taco, and there's a lot of divots in this crimping plier. And I'm going to use this one for my necklace because I'm going to be using a different stringing material, and maybe that will give you an idea of when you should choose one or the other. You can actually use this one for pretty much everything, and there's a third method, which is the flat crimp. So for that, you need just a little crimp bead, and all you do is just flatten it down. And I don't think I'm going to be doing that in my necklace project, but when I use that is when I want to like expose some bead stringing wire and like float beads with some space in between. It works great for that. But you know, a lot of people do the flat crimp for everything, and they don't seem to have a problem with the strength or anything. So I think you'll get your rhythm, but maybe this will help you. Okay, so if you have never seen this before, just the single divot, I'm just going to make sure that it's fit inside that single well in this plier. If it's not in the center, if you go too fast and it's not in the center, you'll mangle the crimp tube. Instead of what we need to do, which is just close the plier, and what that did is took the tube and turned it into a little square with 4 pinched corners. And then you just turn it sideways and fit it back in the very middle of that divot. Again, if you don't take your time and make sure that you feel that it's in the middle, you won't make a little smooth, perfect little bead. You'll make, you'll just mangle the crimp tube. And then you close it, and then you just maintain the position of the crimp tube in the tool and just turn it. It doesn't matter which direction. You can either turn the plier or your work. Sometimes I do both. It depends on what I've been stringing. And just go around a few times so I can feel that I'm just opening and closing the plier for nothing. And when I take it away, look at that. It's just like this perfect little bead, and it actually looks pretty close to one of my seed beads. So I'm just going to, since I couldn't run this little cut end back down through a bead to hide it, I'm just going to snip it as close as I can. And now we do the same exact thing on this end. Just making sure that these aren't pushed down really, really tight. I want to crimp it with my bracelet in a curve, and just check before I chomp down that it's not too, that there's no spaces and that it's not too tight. Sorry, can't seem to crimp and talk at the same time. And I got so just same thing, perfect on little like movement, flexibility. I love the cube beads. I also love doing this with disc beads where you just separate them with a little seed bead. You get this really cool texture. And so I'm simply going to use my Athena cast oval jump rings and add this little magnetic clasp. And I will say something else. I have gotten in the habit of just putting my loop and pulling my bead stringing material back down to my beads. But if you're struggling with that, you could always put your jump ring on, put your jump ring on your loop and use the jump ring to hold on to when you pull your wire back down through your piece. But this little guy is done. I want to see my polar bear facing me. Look how cute that is. Oh, I love it by itself, but I think it's going to be really wonderful, like layered with my other bracelets. But let's keep going. Oh, I want to put my charm on. I get so excited when a piece looks so cute like this. I'm going to take another one of those oval jump rings. And let's see, where do I want to put my charm on this one? Maybe up here, just a little bit above the polar bear. That will be pretty. Maybe just right there. And here's another little one of my bracelet tricks, is that instead of putting my jump rings when I'm adding a charm through a loop, which you certainly can do, it's not wrong, but I like to put my jump ring around the whole circumference of my piece, no matter what the material, whether it's bead stringing material or Brazilian waxed cord, because then my charm is never stuck. It goes 360 degrees around my piece, and whether I pick my bracelet up, no matter which way, my charm will land where I need it to be. It will either go that way or that way. That is so sweet. It's just like one single little snowflake, like landing above the polar bear. I love that. And if you're a fidgeter, like a little thing like that is just so pretty. And sometimes I change my mind. Like sometimes I'll look at it or when I stack it, I might take it off and move it down here. For now, I'll just leave it. But what a sweet little set already just with those two. So my last bracelet is using the Storm Duos and the crystal bicones and the seed beads from last month. And I just love negative space. I even like if I found this ring that has negative space. This is a 2-hole bracelet with 2-hole tiles, and I just love making a little bit of negative space. I don't know if it's the geometry of it or it looks mysterious to me. I don't know. Really sweet, sparkly little bracelet with some negative space, and I think these are kind of silvery, these gray bicones, and they have a beautiful flash, so I love the dot of gold seed bead. And so I chose this little clasp. It's a little white bronze clasp to go on this. And let me get, seed bead got away, come back. Let me get 2 more of my number 2 crimp tubes. And I'll show you how to do this. And I guess this is going to be all about crimping, because I have a little trick for if you want to use the magical crimping plier, but you're using like 7-strand and you're not able to get a good crimp because it's not thick enough inside the crimp tube. I have a little trick for that, and I'll share that with you. And so let me just show you this pattern really quickly before we crimp this one. I just played with the beads and the Storm Duos. I just made sure that I was stringing this. It's like a low side of a wave and then a high side, and I just kept the high side on the right in my stringing, and I just did a seed bead dotting pretty much in between everything, and then just this little pattern of a pair of Storm Duos and then a section of the bicones. And I did it exactly that same way. It's just a simple stringing project and just a really sweet little bracelet. I mean, this could be worn alone or stacked with other things. It's very frosty looking and so pretty. But one thing I do think is that I'm going to move this down just a tiny bit, and I'm going to end with 3 seed beads on each side, and I'll show you why. I want to have, without stressing my nice parallel lines, I want to be able to get both wires into the crimp tube to crimp it. So let me get 3 seed beads on each side. And again, these projects were not like earth-shattering designs, just beautiful, fun, and simple stringing. Sometimes simple, lovely things are the best. So the reason I did the 3 seed beads, you'll see, is when I bring the crimp tube to my 2 wires and put it through both wires, it comes right down to those beads And I don't have to, again, don't have to worry about this end with my spacing. I'm just going to get the crimp in there, but you can see that I'm going to get a really nice crimp. And here's where I'll show you the difference. When you're using your fold over crimp, where's the plier here? When you're using this, like I have the Xuron, these are on crimping pliers, but there are other brands as well. But when you're using this type where you're folding the crimp tube in half, this one makes 2 channels where one wire kind of rests in each channel, and that's what gives it strength. But on the magical crimping plier, you don't have to worry about that. It doesn't matter if these wires are crossed in the tube. It really doesn't matter. And the other thing is with the magical crimping plier is I can fit 3 and even 4 sometimes wires. So I'm going to let this wire hang out, and I'm going to bring this wire back through the crimp tube and make my little loop. And it's the same as the other bracelet. We're not going to worry about spacing or anything on the first end. We're just going to get our loop and get our crimp tube, and I'm going to do the same thing. And so let's see, what did I do with my, oh, here it is. There's been a lot of interruptions today. You may pick up some of it in my recording. A lot of interruptions, phone calls, the neighbors, tools. You know, some days are just like that when you're trying to film. Today's one of those. So I'm just going to repeat that same thing. So I'm just going to trim really close. Being careful not to cut my loop or one of my other strands. And I'm going to save this little piece of wire. I have a little scrap bag. I especially love my Soft Flex wire. It comes in so many pretty colors, and it just has a nice feel. But I'm going to use a different stringing material for my necklace, and hopefully it will give you an idea of, you know, some of the differences, so you can choose for yourself what you think will work best for you. And then I'm going to come to this end and do the same exact thing, only after I have like taken my time and gotten my spacing right. I don't want my little 2-strand bracelet to be too rigid, but just make sure that I have 2 nice parallel lines. Okay, and when I feel like I have it all straight, have my everything centered, again, this is my wire that came back through the crimp tube, and I just let it kind of hang out in the front, and this is the wire that's hanging out in the back, and I'm just going to repeat the exact same thing. Just, it's not too tight, just same thing we've been doing, and trim. And this is where I was saying earlier, I have gotten in the habit of just making those loops and kind of, you know, holding on to my bracelets that way. That is so pretty. But you could go ahead and put your jump rings through just to give you some leverage, but I've just gotten in the habit of doing it this way. Try it both ways and see what's easier for you. So same thing. Just put a jump ring and my clasp. And sometimes on the T-bar end of a clasp, I will go down to smaller jump rings or even add. In fact, I can almost tell that this one's going to be better with 2 jump rings. And that is a great way to add a tiny bit of length if you need it, or just to make it easy to get the, so you can do 2, 3, you can even use jump rings to make an extender chain. I'm going to try it with 2. Let me open this one up again and see how easy or difficult this is to clasp. I find that if I don't make a piece of jewelry that's easy to take on and off, I'll end up not wearing it. No matter how pretty it turned out, if it's too hard to take it on and off, I will end up, you know, never reaching for it. Every YouTuber will tell you that there's something about clasping a bracelet on camera. It just, you can't do it. I don't know why. You can do it over and over again when you're getting dressed, do it by yourself, but on camera it just doesn't work. but that is really pretty. I like the little clasp. I had that in my stash from years ago from a local bead shop, but this is so sparkly and petite. It's great alone, but I really feel like I could also stack it with my other bracelets. So we are going to jump into a necklace project. This is so pretty. I want to keep playing with it. And for the necklace project, as I said, I'm going to be using something a little different. I'm going to use my 7-strand bead stringing wire from POTOMAC Beads. It's really flexible. It's a really nice bead stringing wire. You can see how flexible it is, and this is just about a length. Actually, I cut a little bit more than I will need because I'll show you my little trick. If you do want to do the magical crimping plier on a 7-strand bead stringing wire or one that's thinner, there is a way to do it, and you know, that's like, I think you have to do a few of them and decide what works the best for you. So I'm going to play with downward chains on this. So I'm taking some of that curb chain from last month's POTOMAC treasure box, and I'm just using a piece of wire so that I don't have to count links. And I chose just, I just eyeballed a longer strand, and that's going to be the middle. And then I had these already cut, so these shorter ones are going to be my outer strands. And let me bring in my little card here, and this is going to be, let's see, these two should match the shorter outer ones. Yes. So I just need to cut another one this length for the other side of my longer one. It's going to be like a graduating down cascade on both sides, so from long to like medium and then shorter, and do it symmetrical, sorry, not asymmetrical. So I'm just going to get it on the piece of wire so I can see exactly which length. Make sure I don't make a mistake because I don't want to lose it, and come right there and cut. And so now I will switch this to the other side of this little scrap piece of wire and show you what it's going to look like. This is a great little trick that I think most jewelry people know, so you don't have to count links, is to use a piece of wire. So my little cascade is going to look like that: a long middle one, a little shorter one on either side, and then graduating to an even shorter one. And this is going to get strung right into my bead stringing pattern. So I'm not going to crimp either end right away because I want to be able to work from both sides. But I am going to start with what I want to be the very center of my necklace, which is my longest chain. And I have to say that I see these like downward cascading necklaces in a lot of variations. Actually, you know what? I just remembered. I want to add a jump ring. I want to add one of those oval jump rings to the top of each of my strands. I just think it will hang nice in between the beads. So I'm going to add one and then string it on. I was just thinking I'd rather do that. I really like having jump rings in designs because once it's all strung and finished, if I change my mind or if something isn't hanging properly, I can very easily make the adjustment. But in this case, you'll see, since I'm using those cube beads, you'll see why I wanted to use one of those jump rings. It makes the chain hang down a little bit from my stringing material. And then I'm going to put on a cube bead, and I think I'm still going to work with my gold seed beads at first. Let's see. I'm going to play with this pattern just a little bit and get it just right. And what I started to say when I realized I had forgotten to add my jump ring, but see how the jump ring makes the chain just land right below the bead. I think it's really pretty. But what I started to say is I see these like like fringy necklaces, and I love to do them, and I see them where the chain is just plain and just hanging down, and it's really pretty, but I just can't help myself. I always feel like I need to add a little something to finish the end, so I may or may not do that this time, but I'm thinking about the little bicone crystals, just a tiny little simple loop and just add a little crystal. There's also these tiny little smooth rounds that might be pretty, but plain is also good, but that's just one of the things as I'm stringing that I'll be thinking about. So I'm just going to get my jump rings on every one of these chains as I string it on. This is my next size. Cube beads make a lot of space. I might even start with smaller beads here and then graduate out to the cube beads. So I'm going to play with my stringing pattern, but in essence, that's what I'm going to be doing. A jump ring at the top of each chain. I think I'm going to play with the idea of maybe those smaller beads that I had on my bracelet. Oh, and I also wanted to play with these. Let's cut these open and put these out. These are so pretty. They're very small faceted check glass rounds, but they have the AB finish, so they really look like ice or, you know, sparkling snow. So maybe work some of those in this pattern as well. So I'm going to string, and I'll come back and show you what I came up with my chains and my pattern. Okay, my stringing is all done. This is, whoops, I just pulled my little stopper off the end. Let me hold on to it with my fingers. So I cannot help myself. I always have to put a little drop of an unfinished length of chain or link. It just looks naked to me. So when this is crimped, I'll make sure this isn't too tight because I really like those spiky little beads. And I did a really simple little sparkly drop at the bottom of each of the chains, and I think it's just a beautiful focal, and it's just so pretty. And I just had fun with the stringing pattern, just doing like little sections of like pattern blocking, the little cube beads and then the little smooth rounds with a crystal in between, and just alternating like that, doing my heaviest like right here at the center, and every single bead is just spaced out with one of those gold seed beads from last month's treasure box. So I really love using things that I already have. I love being able to use a little bit of the curb chain from last month and the seed beads and everything, the Athena cast oval jump rings, and I have some Athena cast head pins, and that's what I made my little drops out of. Super simple, just a ball head pin, one of those little crystals, and then a gold seed bead, and then one of the little 3mm check glass faceted rounds. And I did the exact same thing that I've been doing in all the projects, just putting a really small simple loop in there, and didn't close, but that's okay. That happens sometimes if you put your wire in at an angle, or if your head pin is a little bit, or your wire has a little bend, it may not close, but it's a simple loop, and I needed to open it and close it anyway. This is my final one for my necklace, and I'm gonna now close it really well and just open and close my pliers to work harden. And that is so pretty. Oh my goodness, I just love that. I think it's really pretty. It's elegant, it's sparkly, it has a little movement. Okay, so let's block off one side of this and crimp. So I'm going to use some silver crimp tubes since I have this silver bead stringing wire, and these are, pardon me while I reach behind me, these are also number 2 crimp tubes in the silver. So these work with the magical crimping plier or with that fold over crimp method that I was talking about. But I'm going to do the fold over crimp method, and this part is the same. You just put your crimp tube on, and if you don't want your wire here to show, you can string seed beads or some French wire, which I think I'll do the French wire. Let me get some out. I have a little collection of French wire. It makes a really nice finish. Was looking to see if I had any cut. So you just need a little length of it, a lot less than you think you'll need. And if you're not familiar with French wire, it is this really, it feels like a snake, but if you look at it up close, it is a tiny, it's almost microscopic, but a coil. So I'm just going to take a tiny little length of it. You need so little because it's just to make a loop, and I'll cut the other one as well for the other side. So I have my 2 little lengths of French wire. You can also thread seed beads, so I could have even used like more of the gold seed beads that I used in the project, but since we're talking about different ways to crimp, I thought using the French wire would be pretty. So now I'm just going to feed that French wire onto my bead stringing wire. It's silver on silver, but it just adds a nice little finish, and you'll see when we make our loop and come back down through the crimp tube, this wire does not fit through my beads, so I'm not even going to try. I don't think it will. I guess I should try. It looks a little bit nicer when your wire is trimmed not near your clasp, but this is going to be the back of a necklace. Yeah, the bead holes are too small. They're pretty small beads that finished off. And again, my other side is open, so I don't need to worry about my spacing, but I'm just going to pull that into a little loop. And so it looks like that. And now we're going to do the fold over crimp method. And here's where I was saying that you really don't want your wire crossed inside. Let me get my plier. And so I'm going to turn it this way so you can see. So this back divot is like a little notch, and I'm going to rest my crimp tube right in there. And I want to get it so that that tooth is going to make 2 channels in the crimp tube. And so let me just squeeze and show you, see if you can see. So now if you can see, there's one wire in each channel. And then I'm just going to turn it this way, and with the other little divots in this plier, just fold it the rest of the way. So it's like a little taco. And it's really nice and strong, and if you want to just leave it, you can. I tend to put crimp covers over the fold over method, but it's really not necessary. I make my jewelry with my heart, so I just decide what I want to do at the time, but I can give that the little tug test, and it's nice and firm, nice and strong, I meant to say. And I'm just going to come as close as I can and trim it. So that is that. And now on the other side, we do need to pay attention to our tension, and I'm going to be doing the same thing, but what I really want to make sure is it's not too tight, because when this is on the neck, I want my little spikes, my little icicles. I don't want them to be pushed up so tight that they stick out like that. I want them to hang. So I just want to be mindful of that. And I was going to show you another little trick. So if you wanted to do the magical crimping plier here and make your loop, I'm not going to do it, I'm just going to show you this, but like you had 7 strand, or if you feel like you can't get a good crimp, get it to turn this into a bead, it can be because there's too much empty space inside the crimp tube. So you can take a scrap of your bead stringing wire, 1 or 2, just to really fill it up, and just put it in the tube you know, and just let it hang out both ends. It doesn't, you know, and it can be really any color, just like that, just to take up space, and then do your magical crimping plier. So if you're having trouble making the little bead like we did on this with your magical crimping plier, it can be because you have too skinny of a bead stringing wire and it's just not able to grab onto it. So a dummy wire like that, and then, you know, I'm not going to do it because I want to do the same crimp on this side, but then you would come in and do your magical crimping pliers. So I did get questions, and like I said, a lot of people, the ladies that do the videos for the Craftica company, they always do a flat crimp. So, you know, I think it's just what you like, get what you like. But we're going to do the same thing, exactly the same thing on this side we did on the other side. Just put that French wire on the bead stringing wire, maybe. There we go. And make a loop and go back through the crimp tube. And I'm just going to take a moment, like I always do, to make sure, this is the part where I really slow down and just make sure that my spacing is right, because I don't want to have to restring. Okay, and then it's just exactly the same thing. And on, you know, when you're on the end where you can't see, it is sometimes a little challenging to know that your wires are not crossed inside the tube. If you've done it enough, you'll start to kind of be able to feel that, which is another thing you don't have to worry about with the magical crimping plier. But I'm going to do the same thing, just rest my crimp tube in that back channel, and that little tooth folds it and separates the wires, one in each channel. It like makes channels out of the tube, and then just squish it closed. And you don't need to be super aggressive and like smash this to death, because you can actually break it. You just want to make sure that it's a tight close, and you can give it the tug test. It's beautiful. That's just perfect. And then I think I'm going to put a little magnetic clasp on this necklace too. Okay, and then my last thing that I do, oh my gosh, you guys, this is so pretty. Look at this. That is just lovely. I know it's really hard to see how pretty it is and how it hangs on my beading mat, so I'll definitely put some pictures up at the end of the video to show you how pretty it hangs. But I love my little bracelets. This is probably my favorite. I love this little polar bear on that decorative head pin. He looks like he's sitting on an iceberg. And I love this one too. This is so sweet, with one little snowflake hanging above the polar bear. I just had so much fun with this. But one of my favorite things that I get from Potomac beads is the Permalac anti-tarnish coating. I always buy the semi-gloss, because if I brush it over something like this pave magnetic clasp with the little sparkly crystals in it, I'll show you, it does not cloud the crystals. They also have this in a matte form, which could be useful depending on what you're making. But I just brush this over fashion jewelry metals, and as you can see, I'm brushing it over the whole thing, the crystals and all, and it dries super fast. I even get my little brush inside the loops, and that just gives my pieces some longevity. If I have used jump rings that are not gold filled or solid sterling silver, I'll brush it over that as well. And even like if I have like this little decorative head pin with the little sparkly crystal, that metal can turn dark pretty quickly. I mean, I'm in Florida, so with the humidity and the sunscreen, you know, that happens. But I do that at the finish of every project. I'll do this clasp. I could even brush it on the curb chain, but it is just my finishing touch. It's wonderful if you're giving your jewelry as a gift, because then it lasts. But if you are listing your jewelry for sale on a website, it is a great selling point to say that all of your metal findings have an anti-tarnish coating. So I always link that in the description box of my videos, along with my favorite tools. And I just thank you so much for watching. Check the description box as well. I will put links to the Potomac beads website and to the treasure box and the kit edition, their other monthly box. And don't forget, if you're not interested in another box, you can use my link, go to the website. They have fabulous seed bead section on their website. They have everything. It's a great jewelry source for jewelry makers. So check the description box, and I thank you so much for watching and for joining in on my simple stringing projects today, and I hope everybody's safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. Ciao, creative friends.